Hi, well, it's time for Gemini September 2020 tarot reading and forecast, and you're here just in time. That's great to see you. Great to see the subscribers back again. It's always good to see you. And of course, I've done some private readings for some of you, haven't I, during the course of the last month? It's been fantastic to get to know you personally. And if you'd like to have a personal reading, just check out the information which is in the description box below, and you can see how easy it is for that to happen. Well, here we are for Gemini 2020 September. Gemini September, the highly talented and attractive Gemini. Let's see what there is in store. This artist, actually, of this independent deck has provided a Gemini card, which I'll give you a look at when the reading starts. And the deck is no longer in print and is apparently very hard to get hold of. Well, I'm not surprised because it's actually quite beautiful artwork. There's the moon. And it responds very well to my concentration. The Six of Wands, just some staggeringly gorgeous the Five of Cups paintings on these. The deck is what they call collage. I don't know anything about that sort of stuff myself, but it is apparently quite difficult to do, and it's done here to great effect. Let's see the final. I think you'll be very enlivened and interested by these and what is there to say. There is this beautiful Three of Swords. Look, why don't you come and sit down next to me? We'll have a close look at the cards together while I do the reading for you. I think you can see these. Now let's have a look at this card here. This is what the backs of the cards look like, incidentally. Now this is the artist has done a Gemini card here for you. Incidentally, next month's reading will be published on the 9th of September at 2 p.m. Eastern US time. Here's the Gemini card, which I think is actually quite interesting, because Gemini, as you know, is the sign of the twins, of communication, of the trickster. It makes you want to move, to talk, to cross boundaries and slide down surfaces. Not as shallow as the sign is often made out to be by others, though. This sign is said to spend half the year in the underworld. Now, Mercury, the planet of your sign, was one of the few gods who could go down to Earth, up into the heavens, or way down into the underworld whenever he wanted. Gemini rules butterflies, incidentally, and yes, they are pretty and they flit around from flower to flower, but they also scavenge from the dead. Gemini then asks you to communicate, maybe in a pretty and charming way, but the content does not have to be superficial at all. It can be the entry code to the underworld, or it can be messages from the heavens. Well, having looked at that, I will now put it aside because I want to deal with the tarot cards that you have drawn. And let's have a look at this one here first. The moon. Let's have a look here. Moon. Where are you? There you go. Are you in focus? Well, the moon is Neptune in Pisces with Venus exalted. Is it reality or is it an illusion? Pisces is very much associated with the subconscious, with the emotions, with intuition and artistry. And this is the last of the major arcana cards to have, for me anyway, a constellation associated with it. That being Pisces, of course. Now, the planet Neptune. Well, Neptune's watery depths are associated with dreams, with visions, and the imagination, which, links it in with the qualities of the moon, I think. I think this is suggesting a time when something in your life is not as it appears to be, a situation which is deceiving. You may be lost in life and unsure about which way to go, almost as if you were in an outer suburb or area at night with no signposts and unable to determine which way to go. Very often this represents the shadow self, rather, the subconscious or hidden self, harboring negativity sometimes you have suppressed or maybe not even aware of, and there is a need for you to release this destructive energy. And very often this energy can come up from childhood. Now, this card has been interpreted in different ways by different people. I, of course, have my own mystical system of dealing with this, and where this is placed here, it is one that is saying to you that not everything is in darkness. The light of the sun shines in the distance. And in fact, it does here, doesn't it? Here is the sun coming up next, but let's look at this card here. It is the consciousness of the central figure in this card, which is shrouded in darkness. Now, I think what we can also say that we want to focus here on learning to be at peace during times of sorrow or of absence, and in the darkness of unknowing. And in order to accomplish this, you must keep your heart open to yourself so that you have the compassion and holding to also keep your heart open to the larger situation. You want to be protected by putting on armor. It is in being centered and open that you will perceive the situation more clearly and recognize what needs to be done. Now, the presence of the female figure in this card tells me that this is a feminine process. In some ways, the message is similar to that of the hanged man who's not in your spread, and he's depicted as a male to represent the letting go of or turning upside down of the masculine principles of being in charge and leading with the rational mind. The darkness here, and let's bring it in a bit closer because the image is so good. The darkness here, I think, may involve a similar suspension of life as you know it, yet this process is decidedly feminine. It is a watery, fluid process related to feelings and to waiting something out. Now, the lesson here, I think, is to wait and to listen. In order to listen to the subtleties of your feelings and perceptions, you need inner quiet. When your emotions are running rampant, you can't hear the whispers of the small, still voice within. You particularly need to learn how to keep your fears and insecurities in check. Unless you can bracket these feelings, they will distort your perception. Meanwhile, I think this is inviting you to relate to the changes in your life as skillfully as possible, with a sense of balance, inner strength, and trust, and avoid jumping to conclusions and getting caught up in unnecessary dramas. Peace in the darkness doesn't come with making things larger than life, but rather with letting the noise quiet down and abiding in inner stillness. When you sit with what is, accepting unconditionally, surrendering into them, peace can be obtained. Now, I think what this is saying is that your challenge may be to come to peace with changes or difficulties that you have not have chosen. Right? That these are things that have come from the outside. This could be a major loss in your life, a period of darkness, or a more ongoing flux represented by the cyclic changes of the moon. Now, the moon rules fluids. In some traditions, the menstrual cycle is referred to as the woman's moon cycle. Your challenge is to live in harmony with these rhythms. During periods of change, you may experience your feelings as confusing. Can you allow the confusion to simply be there? One feeling following and seeming to contradict the last? It helps if you can keep the perspective that these are simply feelings and that feelings change. If you can identify with the more spacious nature of this sky which is up there, the feelings will not be so disturbing. Now, this is not to suggest that you dismiss your feelings. They contain important information, as do the various expressions of your unconscious. It's a good time to have a dialogue with your dreams, artistic expressions, body, and intuition. The principle here is not exclusion, but inclusion. The trick is to open to it all and not get lost in any of it. It is all part of the changing moon flux of life. Let's have a look at the card that's underneath it, shall we? Which is this, what? It's a nice picture, the Five of Cups. Okay, here is the Five of Cups. Very interesting, quite a stark image. Well, this is Mars ruling the first decan of Scorpio, and I have Mars here because of the number 5. Mars, for me, mystically rules the 5. And so we have a double dose of Mars ruling Scorpio. And the danger is that the heat of Mars can evaporate the waters and the emotions of Scorpio. One expression of this evaporation of the emotions of Scorpio, I think, is what I would call the seductive strategy. It takes a little different form in women than in men, but in both, sexual attractiveness and charm are used to bolster a sense of value, to exercise power, and gain or substitute for love. It's easy to lose sight of the fact that while all that sexiness looks intimate, it really isn't. It's a cover, a convenient mask. Any feelings of real vulnerability are quickly hidden. Now, men employing the seductive strategy often become pursuers, making advances towards others for the sake of engaging sexually, sexual conquest, but without showing up for real emotional contact. This is probably an evolutionary thing. This lack of presence, though, and the insecurity that lies beneath it, prevents them from getting the real nourishment that sexual contact can bring. The pattern can become repetitive, leading to a string of conquests that are empty of fulfillment. The seductive woman, on the other hand, may be a bit more passive, luring her suitor through her appearance. Often she dolls herself up, doesn't she? Changing her earthly physicality into something more artificial. She tries to look better than she actually feels. Now, there is a great deal of power in being desired, isn't there? And those using the seductive strategy capitalize on that, using seduction to pull the strings of others' desires, is not honoring the other, rather it is using them. I think what this energy placed here is asking you to do is to learn more about how you navigate these waters. If you often sexualize your connections, consider a period of, well, God forbid, celibacy, or refraining from seductive behavior to find out what this strategy is actually hiding what is underneath it. Consider how you feel about your desirability separate from the sexual value that others assign to you. Are you being seductive in order to have sexual contact, or do you want something else? If you engage in the seductive strategy, try not to judge yourself, but rather to hold yourself compassionately. The root of this strategy is often a lack of self-love. Perhaps you lean the other way and cover up your sexual attractiveness, diminishing your contact with your natural sexuality. This may be the result of sexual harassment or violation, or could be from early conditioning, or simply being disconnected from your body. You must be physically and psychologically comfortable enough to express yourself honestly if you are to achieve natural intimacy. Well, I'm really drawn to this card, which is on the same line as this, and it's this very minimalist Three of Swords here. Let's have a closer look at it, shall we? Here's the Three of Swords. Wow, look at that. Well, of course, for me, this is Saturn in the second decan of Libra, that 3rd of October to the 12th of October. Now, in ordinary astrology, Saturn is exalted in Libra, and so we might expect really good things. But there's number 3 here. For me, mystically, is also associated with Saturn, and so we have a double dose of Saturn, just as we had a double dose of Mars there before. And Saturn is about limits, restrictions, time, form, and formality. And in the suit of swords, this can sometimes cause some problems. What is there going on here? There may be a moment in here. The reason why I say the moment is because it is on the way out. It's being pushed out by the sun, and it's been crushed by this other fire card here. There may be a moment where there's some sort of bittersweet feeling to things that you do. I will say this, though, that the Three of Swords is actually closely related to the Two of Swords, which comes before it. And that represents the two coming together in an additive way. Whenever two come together, a third, right, is quickly born. The third can have a stabilizing or a destabilizing effect, sometimes both. And this can be seen in the area of joy and sorrow. Joy and sorrow are actually really the same thing. When you sit down at your table with sorrow, always know that joy is sleeping on the couch and is about to come up. And this third, as I say, can sometimes be destabilizing. The birth of a new child, for example, both taxes the couple and strengthens their bond. Love triangles are often highly unstable, whereas bringing in a therapist to work with a couple is an example of the third party helping to balance and strengthen two who are not quite in harmony. I think what this is doing is, this is really inviting you to find the transcendent function of the third, the way it can resolve an underlying tension or polarity through greater inclusiveness. It represents resolving opposing forces through a higher mixing together. For example, resolving the tension between blind faith and doubt through the creation of a more open, tested faith. Being in the suit of swords, this relates to transcending fixed ideas and positions, because the swords is very much to do with the mind. I think that this is a good time to look at what is happening in any triangles in your life. Where are they destabilizing and destructive? And where do they add richness and texture? Now, very often this card can represent sorrow and heartbreak. And if that's the case, it could be as a result of triangular relationships. Now, if you do find yourself, and as I say, this is being pushed away, this card, but if you do find yourself in a painful situation, remember that difficult situations can be great teachers. When did you ever learn anything from something fantastic that had happened? Perhaps this is part of an initiation. In folklore and fairy tales, a person must very often undergo 3 tests or overcome 3 obstacles as part of their growth. So look for ways current hardships can serve a higher purpose. See if you can step back and take a higher point of view. And let this card give you an opportunity to move from being dense to a lighter, freer way of being. But as I say, there's no need to be concerned about things because the cavalry is here at your back. And this is, actually it's in 2 cards, but in particular this major arcana of the sun. And here we have the acrobat of the sun going on here. Well, the sun is obviously associated astrologically with the sun and with the ancient Egyptian sun god Ra. And when you are in touch, this is really representing access to dynamic and creative energy. At the deepest level, this is source energy. It may be experienced as light, consciousness, presence, or aliveness. Another way it expresses itself is in the absolute joy of living, in the joy of life. Now, when you are in touch with your sun energy, you are being yourself in a way that is natural and empowered. There's no shyness holding you back. You let yourself shine. Now, this sometimes may not be easy. You may be used to habitually muting yourself without noticing how much you do this. To claim your light is thus a revolutionary act. You have to care more about being who you are than what others think about you and the ceilings others might like to impose. Most of all, you have to continually break through the ceiling that you impose upon yourself. There is a great freedom in this as you burn through the character structure that accumulates with age. You return to an experience that is fresh and youthful. Often in tarot decks, the sun card has images of children depicting a pure and innocent state. Well, in this sense, the sun represents original nature, I suppose, but children also don't have any layers of negativity. They do. So think of things and look at things as a child did. Because if you were to ask a child what layers of negativity do you have, they wouldn't know what you were talking about. So it's time for you to bring this thing down. Now, I think that this is time for you to come back to your natural radiance. Now, who says you can't be big and bright? Look carefully to see whose limits these are. There are many forces in our culture and internalized in our psyche that attempt to dampen your aliveness. Explore what brings out your aliveness and what benefits, attitudes, and habits. Choke it off. Remember, you have a right to be here and to enjoy life. Now, on the physical level, you may notice a desire to soak up the sun and recharge your solar batteries. Maybe a vacation is in order. It's definitely time to lighten up. You dampen your natural energy when you are too caught up in your head, worrying about things that may never come to pass. This is not a time for furrowing your brow in deep contemplation, but it is a time for relaxation and play. It's also a time for experimenting and being creative, and you might want to consider exploring some of the creative arts. This is a time, this also represents a time when things are going to move forward for you, you know. The sun is going to illuminate your past. I think things have been quite trying for you, haven't they, recently? And this card here represents an energy that says, look, you've paid your dues, now it's time for you to move forward, and I will illuminate your path forward. The Six of Wands. There it is. Well, this is Jupiter ruling the second decan of Leo, the 3rd of August to the 12th of August. Now, Jupiter is all about love, expansion, and philosophy, and this combines with the creativity of Leo, and so we have success in achieving your goal. Leo is also ruled by the sun. And this number 6 here, for me, also has a mystical attribute with the sun and with Krishna consciousness, or Christ consciousness. So you have balance and harmony here as well. Jupiter also gives you confidence and creativity. And Leo is going to bestow an expansiveness upon you. This is the Lord of Victory. And I think what happens here is a time when you will be feeling inspired to continue with what you're doing. You're going to obtain recognition from others. You may even be in the limelight. Victory, success, clarity, breakthrough, these are things that I see, and they follow on also from the sun, don't they, which we've just looked at. Victory over past troubles is what I see here, although you will remember them. You will have defeated them and become stronger. All is well. You have worked hard to get where you are, and you deserve to move forward and have things come your way, and they are. There is going to be very high self-confidence as a result of Leo. So go forward and set new goals and improve your learning and understanding, which is the Jupiter aspect of it. Do what you are planning to do, because this moment promises success. What do you really want to achieve? What does victory mean for you? I'd have this thought in mind, really, and it is this, that I am now ready to enjoy success in my life. Every event in my life brings me closer to my final goal, and my victory brings benefits to all. Well, that's a fantastic spread of cards for you. Good for you, Gemini. Well done. That's the way it is for you this month. Well, there you go. September 2020, another month and a step closer to the end of the calendar year. Let's all keep our spirits up, shall we, during this time. I think there's some aggravation yet to happen, but you are going to be fine according to that reading, and that's the most important thing. And in any event, I want you until next month to remember one thing always, and it is this, that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. Until then, it's bye for now.